Hello folks, this is Tiny Games Lab and welcome back to another tutorial. In this case I'm starting a new series that's called Game Mechanics, where I'm going to teach you some mechanics or some basic mechanics for some simple games. So this one is actually based on the game Duelito. You can see on the screen that's an awesome game. I have been playing a while in my cell phone, and it's all about tapping the screen on the right order, or the buttons in the right order to get the game going, progressing. Very nice game. So I'm trying to teach you guys how to do something very similar and very simple. So basically on this session what we're gonna see is we're gonna have a basic understanding of DS lists, and we are gonna have a basic understanding of a state machine, and we're gonna create an awesome game mechanic. So you can see right now the game that we're going to create. Fairly simple also. You just have to press space to start the game, and then you go through the letters. You have to hit these letters in your keyboard in the right order so you can get progressing in the game. Fairly simple. So I'm gonna show you guys how we're gonna do it. So basically, what is a DS list? So a DS list is basically a 1D array which has a name and positions. So position can go from 0, 1, 2 to the end position. You can take a look at the Game Maker website to take a look at all the functions that involve a DS list. But how is that going to work in our game? Basically, we're going to create a new DS list. So we're going to use the DS list create function, and this is going to be called a key list in our game. So with that list, we're going to populate this list. Basically, we're going to use a for loop, and we're going to use the function DS list add, and we're going to use a function called choose to choose from letter D, F, J, and K, and start populating our list. So for example, if the first letter is D, the position 0 is going to have the D letter, and then we're going to have the F, and maybe F again, and then we're going to go all the way through, I don't know, maybe to J in the end. So this is going to be all random, and we're going to populate at least 10 positions in our list, so from 0 to 9. So then we're going to start checking for the input of the player. So we're going to check which key was pressed by the player using this function here, and we're going to check if the first position, that is position 0 from our list, corresponds to the key that the player has pressed correctly. So that's going to do two things. It's going to count that time that it took the player to get the key correctly, but also is going to remove that position from our list. So let's say the player hit the D correctly, it's going to remove that, and now our list only has 9 positions, going all the way through the 8th position. And let's say he presses F, so he's going to remove that from the list, and now we have only 7 positions. Let's say the player presses F again, that's the correct letter, okay, so removes it again, and the player can keep going and going and going. Let's say we only have 2 positions left, and the player presses the D, removes that. When the player presses the J, it removes that from our list. Our list is empty now, and the game is over. So we're gonna also draw that list to our screen. So we're gonna use first a holder variable that's called a sprite, and with that variable, what we're going to get is just get the index of our sprites, the sprite D, sprite F, sprite K, and sprite J, and I'm gonna draw that to the screen just like you see here. So that's basically how our game is going to look. And the idea is that we're going to use a state machine also in this game, so I'm going to briefly explain to you guys what is a state machine. So a state machine means that we have different states in our game, and I'm going to code all that within our switch statement. So I'm going to have a pause state, I'm going to have a shuffle state, I'm going to have a countdown state, and I'm going to have a play state. And I'm going to move around those states. Firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an enumerator, and with that enumerator I can actually create a variable that's called my state, and I'm going to use a state.pause, state.shuffle, state.countdown, or state.play, and when I switch this variable my state, all my game is going to run properly. So on my step event or on my draw event, I'm going to have a switch condition, and depending on the state that I'm in, some kind of code is going to be run correctly. Okay, so let's head to Game Maker.
Okay,
So first thing we'll do, we'll add the sprites. So I'm going to start by sprite D, that's the date letter. I'm going to center on the X axis only, and then sprite F, okay, and let's repeat it. Sprite J, next one, sprite K. Okay, almost set up. Next, I'm gonna create a new font. I'm gonna call it font Lovelo. I like this font. And then switch to 24, the size, and Lovelo back. Okay, then I'm good. So I'm gonna set up now my room. Let's add a new room. And it's gonna be 405 by 720, as all my games are. And I'm gonna create a new object, call them object general. And this is where the magic is going to happen. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the create event. On the create event, I'm gonna first create my list, my DS list, to hold the keys table. So key list equals to DS list create. There we go. And I'm gonna start two variables, one total time and the other one total error, to keep track of my mistakes. Okay, I'm gonna create my state machine enumerator. So I'm gonna use enum state. Sorry, there's no underscore. Okay, so I'm gonna create 4 states: the pause state, the shuffle state, the countdown state, and the play state. Okay, and now I'm gonna set my initial state. I'm gonna do that through a variable that I'm going to call my state. So let's do it. My state equals to state.pause. So I'm gonna start with the pause state, and I'm gonna give a new variable. I'm gonna set delta time for time mapping in the game. So delta time equals 0, and I'm gonna initiate my font that I just created. So I'm just gonna draw set font F Lovelo, and I should be good to go. Okay, so let's head to the step event, and in the step event we're gonna put the state machine to work. So that's what I want to do. Let's see its magic going. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna use a switch statement, and I'm gonna use my variable my state to choose which state I'm in. So I'm gonna start with state pause and break. Okay, just gonna copy these, and I'm gonna give 2 more states. Okay, so the first one is pause, the second one is gonna be shuffle, and the third one is gonna be play. Okay, so now I just have to add code to this, and we have the state machine working. So on the pause state, I'm going to check if the keyboard is pressed, and I'm going to check for the space key. Okay, so if my space key is pressed, I'm going to change my state to the shuffle state. So that's simple. That's how we get out of the pause state of the game. Okay, on the shuffle state, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to clear my variables. So first I'm going to clear my list using DS list clear on the key list. Perfect. Then I'm gonna set up my total time to 0 and my total error to 0 again. Okay, so now I'm gonna actually shuffle letters. So I'm gonna add random letters to the key list. I'm gonna do that through a for loop. So I'm gonna use var I for I equals 0, I less than 9, and I plus equals 1, or I plus plus, same thing. So within this loop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the DS list add. Yes, there you go. This function. So within, I'm going to use the key list, and then I'm going to use a new function called choose, and I'm going to set it to choose between D, F, J, and K. So it's going to randomly choose between those letters. Okay. Then I'm going to turn on my alarm for the countdown. This is going to be alarm 0. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch my state to state.countdown, and then I'm gonna set my alarm to 90. Since my game is running at 30 steps per second, that's about 3 seconds of countdown before the game starts. So on my state play event, I'm going to do also a keyboard check. This time I'm going to check if the key D or the key F. Let's copy this, okay. Key F or the key J or the key K are pressed. So if any of those keys are pressed, it means that we're actually pressing one of the game keys. And now I'm gonna check if the key that was pressed is the correct one. I'm going to do that also using a keyboard check pressed. So let's check if key pressed is the correct one. So I'm gonna do that through an if statement, if keyboard check pressed. And now what I'm going to do, I'm gonna use the OR also function, but I'm going to look inside my list to find the value at the position 0. So I'm gonna use ds list to find value. Within my kill list, I want to find what is the 0 position value, okay? So if this is pressed, it means that we have pressed the correct key. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete the first value of the list. So ds list delete. And I'm going to use my key list and delete the position 0 value. So we can keep going through the list for the next letter to be checked. Okay. And I'm going to add to my total time, my delta time. I'm going to set my delta time to 0. So this is how I'm going to keep track of how long it took for me to get the correct letter down. And I'm going to add an else statement. So if I got a mistake, and total error plus equals 1. So I'm adding up my total mistakes in the game. Okay, so out of this loop, what I'm going to check also is if the list is empty. So if the list is empty, means I have reached the end of the game. Okay, so if the list is empty, I'm gonna set my state back to the pause state. Equals state.pause, okay. And the last thing I have to do inside this state.play is to add to my delta time. So whenever I have not gotten anything correct, it just keeps adding steps to my delta time. Okay, so that's basically it. We're done for the step event. I'm gonna just quickly do the alarm. So you remember that I'm using the alarm for the countdown state. So the idea is that when I reach the end of the countdown, I'm going to set my state to play. So my state equals state.play, and I'm gonna zero my delta time also. Okay, there you go. And on the draw event, where the magic happens and you can see on the screen what's going on, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a background. Okay, this is just a simple rectangle, colored rectangle, so I'm just at the color to make color RGB 255 234 167. There you go. Then I'm going to draw a rectangle. This is going to be drawn at 00405 720 without outlines. Okay, so I'm gonna set now my text color. I'm going to use also the same function. I'm just going to switch around the RGB color to a 9 132 227. That's a bluish color. Okay, so let me see. There we go. And I'm gonna set also the horizontal alignment to center. So draw set align to FA center. Perfect. Then back again to our state machine. So the same way we did at the step event, we're doing at the draw event using the state machine. So switch my state. Okay, and I'm gonna create a case. This is gonna be case state.pause. So if the game is paused, this is what happens. Also, I'm gonna add a state.countdown. You may see that I do not have this state on my step event, but I'm gonna have on my draw event, and state.play. Okay, so I have all my states done. I just have to add the code now. So starting with the state.pause, what I'm going to do here, I'm gonna draw text. Okay, I'm gonna center it to the X position, Y equals 200, okay, and it's going to say press space to play. So with this, the player knows that it has to press space for the game to start playing. Sorry guys. So if the total time is different from 0, which means that we have just finished the game, so I'm gonna draw text. I'm also going to center it to the screen and 300 on the y-axis. So it's gonna say time taken, and I'm going to use a string format function. I'm going to take my total time, divide my room speed, so that's how many seconds it took us to get the game done, and I'm going to use 1.3, then comma 3, and add the seconds to the end. What this is doing is just writing down the time it took with at least 3 decimal and at most also 3 decimal points after the comma. I'm going to do the same with the total error. I'm just gonna switch the Y position to 400, add mistakes, okay. I'm just going to do directly a string, and the string is going to be my total error variable. There you go. So if you have any mistakes in your game, it's gonna show up how many times you mess it up. So for the countdown, pretty simple. It's gonna be, I'm gonna use a new variable called count, and it's gonna be the ceiling or the roundup of alarm 0. So how many steps it takes to finish this countdown, and I'm gonna divide by room speed. So that's going to give us how many seconds. I'm going to draw the text at 202 centered. Then I'm going to do 720 minus 8 times alarm get 0. So that's basically just making the text move up as the alarm goes down. And I'm going to draw my string count. Perfect. On the state play, I'm going to do a loop also. So I'm going to use var I. I'm going to create a variable called var n. This is going to be equals 9 minus my list size. Since the list shrinks, I want to keep track of how many items I still have on my list and how many items I have already taken off the list. And I'm going to start the for loop. So for I equals 0, I less than the S list size, the key list, I plus plus. Okay, so what I'm going to do inside this for loop, I'm going to create a new variable called letter sprite. Okay, let it go, letter sprite, okay. And this is going to be an asset get index function, awesome function. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the sprite underscore, and I'm going to add my DS list find value at my I position. So this is actually making the game find out the index of the sprite, the correct sprite for each letter in each position. And then I'm going to draw a sprite. And so the sprite is going to be my letter sprite. And what I'm going to do here on my Y position, I'm going to use 60 plus 60 times Y plus 60 times N. This is just to keep things in the same place in the screen, even if the list goes down. So if I have only 6 objects, it's going to keep in the same place. Adding the object OGener to the room and hitting play. And hopefully we'll get a game. Okay, I'm going to press space. Countdown's working, perfect. So I'm gonna, oh, sorry. So we got something wrong on our code. Seems to be in the step event. So let's check the step event. Okay, I found it. So in my keyboard check pressed, I'm checking for key list. It doesn't exist, so it's key list. Typo mistake. Let's try it again. Okay, so let's press space. Perfect. The game's playing very well. So that's about it. You can see I can hit the correct letters. If I have any mistakes, it's going to show up. It keeps track of all my time that it takes for me to finish going through all the letters in the screen. And that's basically it. From here, you can move forward and make your own game. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please click on the subscribe button. If you want to be notified when we get a new video, please click on the bell button. Please leave your comments below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, and what you want to see next, and we work to get it to you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next.